Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Almost said good morning. I'm Kelly Clark. I'm the facilitator for this section, for this room, and I'm also I'm a GTAP Jack of all trades from Rosebud School District. I'm also the AGATE proposal chair, so I've got to read all these wonderful proposals. Questions, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat, and we will go over those at the end of their presentation. We'll do some questions and question and answers. Also, your bingo card, if you're playing bingo, that has to be submitted by 4 o'clock. And if you don't have the first block checked where it says, I saw someone wearing an Agate Zooming with Friends t-shirt, well, there you go. You see it now. Okay, I'm going to turn it over for lights, camera, enrichment.
Hi there. My name is Mignon Scarborough, and this is Sarah Caroline Halford. And we teach in Fayetteville. We are 2 out of 6 elementary teachers on a GT team. We cover 9 schools between us.
I'll go ahead and share my screen so we can get our presentation up and going. I know people will probably be jumping in because of the breaks and going to the vendors, all that is kind of a quick turnaround, but we'll go ahead and get started.
So here we are.
All right, so basically with all of this, we have lights, camera, enrichment. And like most of us had to do when it came to COVID starting in the spring and then continuing into this year, we had to kind of rethink how a lot of what we were doing would be done in a virtual setting. And so when we were thinking about our enrichment for the fall and throughout the school year, there were some concerns that came up. And so we decided to create videos that would be given to the first grade teachers to use for whole class enrichment. And so these particular videos were used with our first grade groups. And we had 3 main reasons that kind of helped us come to this decision to do it virtually. The first one was equity. All schools had access to the same lesson. In our district, we had 3 different formats in our elementary schools alone. And so we have hybrid, virtual, and traditional. I know many other schools did the same thing with that. And so we didn't want to create a situation where certain students, because of their learning option, had better access to the enrichment. We wanted to make sure it was an equitable experience. All students had the same access. The second thing was scheduling. Not only for our schedules, because I don't know about you all, but our schedules got really crazy when it came to trying to navigate all of these different options. And so it created less time for us to be able to go into classrooms like we might on a normal year. But also for the classroom teachers, they could use the videos at optimal times. Some chose to use them on our scheduled virtual learning days or on snow days. I had one teacher do that recently, or even on a day when there was a substitute, or if they had a scheduled time when they wanted to do enrichment. They got to choose whatever was best for them. And then the last thing was safety. In Fayetteville, we are lucky enough to have support from our middle school and junior high teachers to come and help us with the enrichment in our buildings. And so when it came to scheduling all these enrichments, we didn't want to put anyone at additional risk by crossing buildings, crossing classrooms, anything like that. And so those were our 3 reasons that we decided to do this format of videos. So with our videos, they each follow a consistent process. And so you'll get to watch one at the end of this presentation. We're actually going to show you a full video that we did that you'll get to act like a first grader and even participate in that activity. But each one had the same components to it, which included a review of previously learned creativity skills, an introduction, those were acted out by our GT team, and then instruction about the creativity skills, a read aloud of related book. Most of the time those came from YouTube. There are a lot of really great YouTube videos of read alouds for these types of books. And then finally a reflection on the book with those acted out characters, as well as a challenge or activity that the students would then complete independently and record a flip grid of themselves, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. This is the part that gets a little technical and a little heavy. We're talking about with this video creation and editing. Now, I had never created any kind of edited video prior to this, beyond cropping the ends of the videos. I'm certainly not an expert in this area, but because of the situation we were in, I had to learn a little bit. So I had to get a little uncomfortable with that. And this DaVinci Resolve 17, if you are ever thinking about editing a video, especially for school purposes, this is the most user-friendly one while still having all the features you may need. One of our technology specialists in our district actually recommended this to us because it has all of the different kinds of features. It is free. I think there is a paid version, but it is free for the most part. And it's pretty intuitive if you spend a little time with it. And with that, that's kind of the best advice I have with this particular program, but with any video editing, you kind of have to just jump right in and start playing around with the features. There's no way to really follow a great tutorial, but if you start putting in the videos and playing around with it, eventually it starts to make a little more sense. And with the actual recording, we just recorded on an iPhone, so nothing really fancy there. We did have a tripod that we used that was made for iPhones, but that was about the most advanced technology on that part. And then we used Screencastify or Loom and Google Slides to record the bits of instruction. So we would just record ourselves talking about those different parts and had lots of pictures and different things for the students to look at while we did that. And like I said, those read alouds were downloaded from YouTube.
So we found the best way for the students to share their thinking with us was to use Flipgrid. And we had never used that before this year, of course. And so we had to learn how to do it. I created a slideshow with the Loom, which is like Screencastify, that taught the teachers, the parents, and the students how to use Flipgrid. And I actually went in, I do kindergarten enrichment too. And I went into the kindergarten teachers and I just had them do a lesson and they all did their Flipgrid. And so once they knew how to do it, they felt more confident with it. And so the top link there is to Flipgrid. And then the bottom link is the Loom that I made that shows parents and children and teachers how to do it. So you'll be able to access that.
And just so you know, our slides are already on the Sketch platform, but if you have trouble accessing that, our contact information is at the end of this, so you can always get in contact with us.
So we have some advantages and disadvantages for Flipgrid. It's super easy for us to access the student work. And that's one of the requirements that the state said, you know, yeah, you can do enrichment virtually. We had to get permission to do that, but we had to be able to see their work. And in some ways it's better because the students are explaining their thinking. And, you know, when I'm in an enrichment class with 23 kids in there for 25 minutes, I can't talk to everybody. And so that's been really great is I can really see their thinking. It's a fun little application and the kids really love it. Like I said, the students can go into detail and they can see each other's work and they have so much fun doing that. And the parents can also see their work.
And Flipgrid has a really cool feature where it shows you your hours of engagement if you haven't used it before. And so it's really fun to see like how many times they viewed each other's videos and how much they've been interacting with that as well.
There are some disadvantages. Everyone had to learn how to navigate this new app. And, you know, some days we just think I can't learn one more new thing. And then the next day, yeah, I do have to learn one more new thing. And so we've had parents who emailed us with questions and teachers who emailed us with questions, but we've been able to help them. Sometimes Flipgrid does funny things on its own. And so sometimes I just say, you know, wait a couple hours and go back and try it. And the students have to have internet access. And we know that not all our students do. One of the things in Fayetteville is they got some hot spots and put around into some areas that maybe those parents aren't able to afford internet access. But that is, to me, that is probably the biggest disadvantage because students of poverty might not be able to access this.
So with this program, we started planning this toward the end of the school year last year and through the summer when we realized this COVID thing was not going away. And so our assumption at that time was that probably we wouldn't be in person for school for very long. That turned out to be different. We just had lots of different types of models that we were working with instead. So we had kind of a mad dash rush at the beginning of the year to create our videos. We actually took 2 different planning periods where we got together to record them, and then I spent time afterwards putting them all together so we could get them ready as soon as possible in case we weren't able to be together for very long. But then as the year progressed, we realized that we were going to be in school still, and classroom teachers had some ways that they kind of wanted us to help adapt it for them. Some teachers, especially in those primary grades, they prefer structure. And so to help with that, we provided some worksheets for them to complete the same activity they would otherwise, but just to give a little bit more structure to the activity. Many teachers started using the videos in person. Some continue to use them on virtual days, just to make sure that every student could have the opportunity to participate if they were in that traditional setting. So now we're going to talk about all of our different resources. And so the way this is going to work, we have 8 different lessons. Some of these lessons are ones that have already gone out to students, so we already have examples from students. And some are still to come, or we are still getting in those responses. So with each one, we're going to show you the book that we used for the skill, the activity, and then either a student example or what they may be doing soon. So for our first one, we start out the year with the story, Not a Box. And this teaches fluency. And this story actually kind of became the theme for a lot of our videos. When you see the video later on, you'll notice some bunny ears, and that's because we are playing the character of the bunny and using our creativity machine box to help keep some consistency in a theme throughout the year. But for this activity, they found or drew boxes. And so for those virtual students, some of them physically went in their room and found a box to help them brainstorm. And some of them drew it on a sheet of paper or even a scrap of an envelope. But all of that was just to help them to visualize and be able to come up with lots of ideas of what their box could be instead. And so we are going to watch a video. I'm going to go ahead and share sound for this, of a student's example of what he thought his box should be.
So I built this. So I built this into like the moon lander. See, the moon lander that's supposed to land on the moon, but the rocket's not supposed to land on the moon. Because if it lands on the moon, its engine will get crushed. So I saw in a book that the moon lander has 4 legs and an engine right here. So I built 4 legs and put it with some tape, lots of tape. And then put the rocket booster right here. And then I also made it out of this, which is nearly destroyed, in another box. And I also made a door and put a Lego person inside. Hi.
So that's pretty much the end of the video. It's always fun to see student examples, especially when they're as cute as that one. But you can imagine it's pretty fun going back to look at the students' thinking after the fact, because it just brightens your day to see a first grader talk about this lunar landing box that's not a box.
And, you know, we know that sometimes the parents did help, and I think the parents had as much fun as the kids did. And, you know, sometimes they would prompt them or they would be the one holding it, and so they would get in on the action too. Okay, our second one was Beautiful Oops. And if you haven't ever used this book, it is a fabulous book. It's about making your mistakes work for you. And we use this to teach flexibility. The activity is to find a piece of paper that's going to be thrown away and turn it into your own beautiful oops.
I'll share sound again.
So here are some examples from students.
This is my oops. I accidentally pulled his arm. I glued it back and And what its oops is now its sword can shoot out.
And then on the left there, we have a student who found a newspaper that I think the dog got a hold of. And so he decided to make it into a Roman costume, he says. There we go.
All right, and so our third one was Carla's Sandwich. And this is a book that teaches originality. Some of our books also have a social emotional component. And this one is about being tolerant of others. So we like to have both of those going on. But Carla makes sandwiches out of very, very unusual things. And her classmates at first think they're just gross and yucky, and then they kind of all get in on the action. And so this was when we started using worksheets for teachers. And so the activity is to create a drawing of an ice cream sundae with original ingredients. And so here are some examples. On the front of the sheet, the students put down all their ingredients, and there that spelling is. So if I have first graders who are able to spell words like this, and this was, I think, November or December, those are ones that I might think about testing. And then you can see on the back how they put their sundaes together, and they're just works of art. And I love the cherry, cherry, cherry. And then she does indeed have 3 cherries on the back. But these were really fun for the kids.
Certainly some attention to detail there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then for our elaboration lesson, we used the book If I Built a House by Chris Van Dusen. This is a really cool story where this boy describes all of the rooms. If he were to build a house, all of these different rooms he would have. They're very unique, but also there are lots of details to them. And they're just kind of out of this world. So their activity was to design a space wherever they live that has lots of details to them. And so here are some of those pictures. You can see, especially for some of these kids, I know that this is really adding a lot more detail than we might otherwise see. They were really focused on that one skill for this. For some of them, we see a room or a house where every single floor has its own color. We see a water slide that goes into a pool, and I think an upside down, maybe anti-gravity kind of bed in that one, and a spaceship landing strip. So lots of really unique ideas, and of course, lots of details to those. And once we taught our 4 main creativity skills of fluency, flexibility, originality, and elaboration, then we start to teach students that these skills can be put together, and that really can help our ideas. If we just use fluency and we don't come up with those unique ideas with your originality, you might not come up with your best one. So it's better if we combine the skills. And so we used the story Arnie the Donut. This is kind of a longer story, but it is so cute. We have this donut, his name is Arnie, and a man purchases him from a bakery, and he spends the rest of the book trying to figure out how to convince him not to eat him. And so instead, we don't want to be wasteful, so he has to come up with other uses for himself, which is a lot of fun. And they then use all of their creativity skills to find something that they might normally throw away and come up with a different use for it, just like Arnie. So for this one, we're going to take a look at part of one of the videos that we have, because we have a lovely Arnie the Donut puppet that was used. So this is one of our more recent videos that we used.
I can't believe I forgot to eat breakfast before I came to school today. I'm going to be hungry all morning.
Look, there's a delicious donut sitting right on our box. On our creativity machine.
Fantastic. That's just what I need.
Wait right there. What do you think you're doing?
Whoa, a talking donut?
What do you mean, a talking donut? Of course I talk. I talk and I walk and I have gone lots of adventures. What kind of adventures have you gone on? Oh, I've had so many adventures. My life began when I was just dough. And since then, I've learned to do lots of things.
But you don't get eaten? You look so tasty.
Oh, no, 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 no. I had to be creative to make sure I wasn't eating.
What creativity skill did you use?
I used several.
What do you mean?
Did you know that you can use more than one creativity skill at once? It actually helps when you use fluency, flexibility, originality, and elaboration together.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
It really is. Let's learn more about using the creativity skills together, and then I'll tell you more about my life story.
That sounds great.
So I don't think we're going to be winning any Oscars anytime soon for this. But honestly, the kids kind of love the ham bone approach to this. They think it's really silly to see the teachers that they recognize from around the building being silly, being out of the box. And I think that encourages them to be a little silly in their ideas too.
So the next book we used is After the Fall, How Humpty Dumpty Got Back Up. And this is another social emotional book that is just a wonderful story. In it, Humpty doesn't get put together by all the king's, well, he does get put together by all the king's horses and all the king's men, but he wants to go back up on the wall. And so it's a whole different version of Humpty Dumpty. And so we'll show you a little clip from it in a minute, but what the students will do after this is they're going to write an ending, a new ending for the nursery rhyme Jack and Jill.
Wow, did you see that? I turned into a bird and fly away.
Well, you are an egg, Humpty. That's what happens when eggs hatch.
I like that you were so brave in this story. You had to overcome your fear of heights. I like that too. I was very brave, even though I had been scared. I'm kind of a hero.
Do you think there are other stories or rhymes that could have different endings?
I bet there are. That would be a fun way for the first graders to use fluency, flexibility, originality, and elaboration.
One of my favorite rhymes is about a boy and a girl named Jack and Jill. Let's watch that one.
And so we have a PowerPoint of Jack and Jill, and it was just something I created. I used silhouettes, so we didn't have to worry about what the kids looked like, you know, if we were showing diversity or any of that. It's just silhouettes. And then we say the rhyme, and then we tell the students that they need to either show us in a story that they write or draw or both what could happen instead of them just falling down and breaking their heads. So we'll have to see what they come up with. Okay, and so ish is another one that is really good. It encourages children that they don't have to be perfectionists, because their artwork could be blue-ish, or it could be beautiful-ish or pretty-ish. And so what we ask the children to do is to create their own scribbles and then turn it into a creative picture, once again using all 4 elements of creativity. And so these are some examples. You can see bunny-ish. And we have bow-ish, I can't read all of them, wave-ish, rainbow-ish. And then here's one down here that is, I think, something being shot.
I think it's a volcano.
A volcano-ish, that would be good. So that's a fun one too.
And then our last one of the year uses the book Spork. And so just like a spork is the combination of a spoon and a fork, the students are going to combine school supplies to create some kind of new item or tool. So for this one, this is the worksheet that they will get if their classroom teacher would like for them to use a worksheet. Otherwise, they can hold up the items or just tell us about it. So when it came time for documentation, of course, you know, documentation of enrichment is part of what the state asks of us. But also we wanted to keep track and look at a couple things. First of all, because we're doing this in a different format and we have virtual students, we wanted to make sure we knew who was completing the assignment, just to make sure, especially if, you know, a couple months in a row, if a student wasn't getting theirs done, then maybe we need to check in with that teacher. But also we wanted to record when we saw really exceptional creativity. So we have a very large Google Sheets for our whole district. So every one of our teachers, as we receive those Flipgrids, we go in and mark off who we've received them from. And then if we see something really cool, then we'll add just really quick notes. We thought this was a good way to combine what we do in a normal year with this format where we do get to see more of their thinking than we normally do.
And we test first graders in our district, and GT classes start second grade. So the students we've been seeing, some of the ones that you saw, we're testing them currently. And it's been great to see all their creativity.
And also, so of course, with any new technology thing and with any new format, there's going to be errors that pop up along the way. Here are just a couple that came up a couple times when we were doing this. The first is very particular for virtual teachers or teachers who use it on a virtual day. I had several teachers come to me because they wanted to know when they sent their kids off to do the enrichment assignment, they wanted to make sure that they weren't getting an extra recess, that they actually were participating in this and getting that creativity enrichment that they need. So with this, with Flipgrid, you can use co-pilots where you invite another teacher to be able to view all of those students and view what they've done. And that makes it really helpful for other teachers. So if you're collaborating with any teacher on an assignment, that's a really useful tool on Flipgrid. And then this is a little bit of a soapbox moment for me because this is something I've run into several times this year. And this is not just for enrichment. This is for any type of lesson in a virtual format using Google Classroom, all of that sort of stuff. When you are using a video that you've created, especially, uploading it to YouTube as an unlisted video is the #1 way to go with this. Because if it's sitting in your Google Drive and you post it to your Google Classroom, be prepared to get 40 emails from students where it's asking permission for them to view that video. Sometimes when you just upload the video in its entirety to those platforms, it will take forever to post and it will take forever for students to access it. And especially if you have a student working with one of those inexpensive internet services that have been made for students in need, those can't really handle downloading those videos. But if you upload it from yours, it's really easy. I just use my school Gmail to log into YouTube, and you already have an account ready with that. And you upload it in privacy, you click unlisted. That means everyone who has the link will be able to view it. And so it makes it really easy. Students can access it on their own and they're viewing it on YouTube, so it's not going to have an issue with downloading.
And they can use any device. They can use their parents' phone or iPads or their school Chromebooks or whatever.
So if you have one thing to take away, unlisted YouTube videos.
Yeah. So what we have done for classroom teacher support is we created the looms to teach people how to use Flipgrid. We have been in person, we talked to the teachers, we email them, we have gone and helped them. And, you know, it's that relationship piece that we need whenever we're working with other people. And we've talked to them a lot. We also send them a monthly reminder. Oh, here's your enrichment stuff and here's your link, and we check in with them. And that's, you know, it's not the same as a normal year, but it's been really good for all of us, I think.
Yeah, and providing that support, it goes back to Gary Brooks's keynote yesterday of we want to make sure you're not an island. We want to make sure we're being supportive of the teachers around us with this sort of thing.
Now it is your turn. We're actually going to watch the very first one that we showed the kids, the Not a Box, and then we want you guys to create a Flipgrid for us. And Sarah Caroline and I both did one, and so you can see it's not hard, okay? And it's kind of fun, but we want you to be the first graders. So we're gonna watch a video about the Not a Box, and then you get to do the fluency assignment.
And so we'll tell you all about the Flipgrid stuff when we get there. I promise it's not hard and it's not scary. So let's go ahead and watch that video first.
Boys and girls, we are going to learn so many fun things in our creativity enrichment this year. But first, let's think back to last year. Do you remember Scamper? It was a special way to help us think in new and different ways. Let's review what each of those letters of Scamper stood for. So first, we have the S. It stood for substitute. Substitute was a word that meant you take something from it and replace it with something else. So if I had these Oreo cookies, I could substitute, and maybe I don't like chocolate, so I want golden Oreos. So instead of having a chocolate cookie, I substituted it for a vanilla cookie on the outside of the Oreo. The second letter was C, and it stood for combine. With combine, we took two things or more, put them together, and came up with something new. So for example, if I had a spoon and I combined it with a fork, I would get a spork, which combines the words and it combines those two tools. Then we learned about adapt. Adapt means changing something for a different situation or person. So for adapting, if I had a regular tennis shoe, I could adapt it and make it better for kids by changing the laces for Velcro. That's kind of substituting too, isn't it? Then we had maximize and minimize. Remember, maximize means to make it very big and minimize means to make it very small. So let's look at a few examples. If I took carrots and I wanted to minimize them, what do you think we would get? If you said baby carrots, that's exactly right. We made them smaller. If I took this blue pencil and I wanted to maximize it, what do you think it would look like? Look how big that pencil is in his hand. Now, what if I took this stapler and I minimized it? Think about the picture in your mind of what it would look like. Did it look like this? It's a small stapler now. After that, we learned about putting things to other uses. So that means taking something and using it in a different way than what was originally planned. So if I have this couch and this blanket, can you think of a way I could put it to another use? Here's what I thought of. I could make it into a blanket fort. Maybe you did that this summer. It looks really cozy. The next word we learned was eliminate. When we eliminate something, we take it away. So we take away part of the original thing to make it into something new. If I have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, one thing I might want to eliminate is the crusts. So that means I could have this new thing that's just like a PB&J, but it has no crusts. The last word we learned was rearrange. When you rearrange something, you move parts of it around. This is especially fun with puzzles like Rubik's Cubes, where you can rearrange it to solve the puzzle. I hope you remembered all of the fun things that we learned with Scamper. Let's find out what we're learning this year.
Why are you sitting in a box, Miss Halford? It's not a box, Mrs. Finney. What do you mean it's not a box?
It's my creativity machine.
Your creativity machine? What's that?
It helps me think creatively.
It looks just like a box to me.
That's the best part. When we think creatively, we use our imagination. We can think of anything we want to. So I like to imagine my box as a machine. Does that make sense?
Well, sure. That does make sense. I could imagine your box being a race car.
See, you're using fluency. You're thinking of other ideas. That's what we're learning about today.
Fluency is producing many ideas. Fluency is a special part of creativity. Fluency is having lots and lots and lots of ideas. When we are trying to think of a good idea, it normally takes us a few tries. The more ideas you have, the more options you have to choose from. It can be really fun to come up with many ideas for something. Did you know you can use Fluency to help you at school? You might have heard of the word brainstorming. Brainstorming is sort of like Fluency because you come up with as many ideas as you can. One way you can use Fluency is to help you be a better writer. When you think of lots of ideas, you can pick the best one and write an awesome story. So Fluency means having lots and lots and lots of ideas. Say it with me. Fluency is having lots and lots and lots of ideas. Let's see how someone else used Fluency. We're going to share a story with you where Bunny comes up with lots of ideas for what his box could be.
Stories with Fox. Today's story is Not a Box by Antoinette Portis. Why are you sitting in a box?
It's not a box.
What are you doing on top of that box?
It's not a box.
Why are you squirting a box?
I say it's not a box.
Now you're wearing a box?
This is not a box.
Are you still standing around in that box?
It's not a box.
Well, what is it then?
It's my not a box.
Hi friends, did you guys see how many ways Bunny used his box? Let's count how many ideas he had. Help me count. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a lot of ideas, but he wasn't done. 5, 6, 7, 8. And this was my favorite. 9. Look at all the ideas that he had and all the ways that he used his box.
See how fun it can be to use our Fluency to come up with lots and lots and lots of ideas? I think we should all give it a try.
I do too. You know what? Wait just a second, Miss Halford. I was looking around my house and I found some of these boxes and I just wondered, like, what could they be if they're not a box? What do you think?
Let's take a look. Maybe this one could be a fairy house.
Oh, I love that idea. Wow, I don't even know what to do with this box because I have so many ideas, I don't even know which one to choose. I mean, it could be a picnic basket, or I could maybe make it into like a robot. But oh, he used that idea. I might not want to use that same idea. Or I could even make it into a birdhouse.
Boys and girls, now I think you should try this too. We want you to imagine what a box could be if it's not a box. If you were at home, you could go find a box and think of what it could be.
If you're in the classroom or you can't find a box at your house, you can just draw some boxes on a piece of paper and then draw what you would turn them into. So you could just make some boxes like this on your piece of paper and then decide what you would turn those boxes into.
And after you've used your fluency and thought of lots and lots and lots of ideas for what your box could be, you're going to record a video sharing your favorite ideas.
Just remember,
It's not a box.
Okay. So, as you can see, it's certainly not perfect by any means, but honestly, the imperfections give it some character and the kids really seem to enjoy that. Personally, I've had several students come up to me since these videos and say, hey, you're the bunny, which is a really strange experience, but it's a lot of fun too. So I'm going to tell you how we're going to do this Flipgrid, and then we can take questions before we go do those Flipgrids in case you either get kicked off or need to log out of Zoom to be able to do that. But the easiest way to do this is to use your phone perhaps, or if you need to get off of Zoom to do this, that's fine too. But you will go to flipgrid.com/agate2021. And that site will take you directly to our Flipgrid for this.
Okay, so if you want to, you can just draw a box on a piece of paper and decorate it, or if you want to find a box, you can do it that way. Either way will work.
And then something important with Flipgrid, when you do go to that link, it will ask you to either sign in with your email, sign in with Google, or use a guest password. With students, sometimes it is easier to have them log in with their Gmail, especially if they have a Chromebook. All of it can be Google linked. But if you don't have all the same domain, like all of us, I would have fayar.net. I'm going to pick on my dad because he's in this one. He would have @lrsd.org. So because of that, we're using a guest password. So you'll have to make sure that you click on that option and then type in AGATE 2021. The A is capital, all other letters are lowercase. The rest of Flipgrid is pretty self-explanatory, but before we kind of take that pause to go make our Flipgrids, do we have questions that we have received? Let's open up the chat.
Okay. Or if anyone wants to just ask us a question now, that would be fine too. Can we get permission to see those creative ideas? Sure. This PowerPoint is linked in Sched, so all of this is there. You're certainly able to do that.
When it comes to the actual videos, I do recommend, I know it's a lot of work, but creating videos, because it's really cool to be able to make those connections with students. Even in a virtual setting, they come to recognize you. And then if they come back to school or whatever setting, it helps establish a connection even though you've been apart.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, how long are your videos?
They range. The first ones were closer to around 10 to 12 minutes. Some of the later videos were around 15 minutes, but they're fairly short just because those littles, we know their attention isn't too long.
And that's why we have the different parts too, so they can, review it and then see the story and then see us being the people in the box or the bunny.
And yes, I do see some people talking about the Flipgrid of not allowed to join. That is where you would use that guest password.
So just go down below. It says sign in with Google or sign in with Microsoft. Just go down below and use the guest password.
Okay. And yes, that would be the join code as well.
Are you a family member?
Oh, yes. Are there any other questions before we go do our Flipgrids?
You can see the ones that Sarah Caroline and I did. So you have these fabulous examples, and you're going to feel very low pressure once you see ours, I promise.
I have a question. Do we have to draw every object, or can we just name it?
You can name it. You'll see in the example I did, I had like a candy box and I just held it up and said it. Some people, you could take the box and just have that as your visual and just say what you would turn it into.
And that's
Okay.
what did too. They did it however they wanted. And that's one thing that I think is really fun about this is there aren't a lot of rules and you get to see their creativity.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, so if you do not have questions, if you want to turn off your video, mute and all of that to try it on your phone. I do know for a fact with Zoom, if you are trying to use your computer, it will not let you record when the Zoom is going on. So either another device, or if you have to go ahead and get off to try that out, that is perfectly fine too. But I think we'll hang out on here if you have any questions or if you run into any issues.
Just come back.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. We really appreciate everyone listening. And we appreciate your participation.
Yes, I'm excited to see these.
Well, I have a question. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, will we be able, I know for 2 weeks they're going to put some things up. Will we be able to go back and look at this video like one more time to catch some details we didn't see?
Yes.
Or we will be able to? Okay.
Yes.
And I may have missed this. I was trying to take notes as fast as I could because everything was so great. But do you have like a packet or of this information, or just that it'll be the slideshow, right?
The slideshow is on there and it does break it down lesson by lesson for the sources and activities.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So do you give this to the teachers every week, or is it like a monthly thing and then they can continue on with it?
Great question. So we do monthly enrichment that we do synchronously.
Okay, yeah.
And then in past years, we also, this year as well, we provide information for them to be able to do on the off weeks to do lessons on their own. But we have thought about the fact that these might be good when we are able to go back into the classroom to have these videos for those off weeks. Since it's intimidating for some of them to teach the creativity skills.
Right. I love this idea. I love this idea of having it, they can use it whenever, instead of us having to set up a time to go see them.
Right.
It may not be the best time for them to have us go see them.
And this is what I always think. Before I came to Fayetteville, I've been in Fayetteville for 13 years. I was a GT person in Prairie Grove, and there was one other GT teacher. But I think, if you're at a small school, call somebody, a GT teacher at another school, and get that person together and make these, or, do lots of collaboration with other GT teachers, because, it's really hard being the only one.
Yeah.
Being a part of teams. Yeah.
The only one at 2 schools and trying to do it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you get your music?
So when it came to, it was the Mission Impossible theme song at the beginning. I think once again, those were YouTube videos, and I Googled YouTube to MP4, and it downloaded, and then you can also, with that DaVinci 17 Resolve, it lets you layer music over videos. But I'm sure you could also play it in the background while recording the Loom for that.
Loom is super easy. That's one of the things I taught myself to do last spring. And I am not the techie one. That's why Sarah Caroline and I did this together. She did all that stuff, and I can, make a Humpty Dumpty is what I did.
So did you use your phone to video yourselves?
Yes.
Okay, that easy. Okay.
And we wrote a script out and we put it on a computer. So the fabulous actresses that we are, notice our eyes are going because we're reading a script that's right next to the.
That's okay. You have the script. That's easy.
But so we had the script on our computer, and then we had the phone right there. And we made the script big so we could see it because squint.
That's a great idea. I love it. Because I like the box. Have you seen it's not a stick that goes along with not a box?
Yes.
Yes. That would be a backup to go with that one.
Absolutely.
I used that last spring when we were all virtual, and I met with first grade classes. I just read that and said, you know what, go outside and find a stick. And, I guess they did, hopefully.
So you send stuff to the teachers using Flipgrid technically?
We send them the links. We have Google Docs and we have shared Google Drives. We don't Flipgrid. The kids do it on Flipgrid, and then we can check. The teachers can check it as well.
Because our K1's not using Google, they're using Seesaw now, and so that's a whole nother ball game.
Yes.
So the way that it's worked for that, because we also had some of those struggles of different groups doing different things.
Yes.
is we just have, it's a Google Doc and it says the month, the skill, and then it's the link to that unlisted YouTube video. That is like a video that you saw, and then a link to their Flipgrid. The kids, they can upload that link to whatever platform they're using for Flipgrid. They click on it and the kids then see that same screen that you guys see as far as.
So you still use Google to send out to the students, even though they may not be using Google in the classroom?
We send it to the teachers and then.
Okay.
And then actually what we're doing, lots of the in-person teachers, the kids are no longer Flipgridding. They just do the worksheets and then we look at the worksheets and so, you know, some of them have liked Flipgrid. Some of them liked it so much they started using it for other stuff.
In their class,
But some of them, it's hard for them to manage.
Okay, ladies, it's 2:15. Thank you very, very much for your, I have more notes than I know what to do with. Wonderful. I love books. It was great. Thank you so much for sharing. Everyone who attended, thank you for attending. And please use this break to go visit the vendors and the exhibitors. And our last session of the day, session 6, will begin at 2:35. Thank you very much.